The hearing was supposed to be focused on immigration laws. A normal day in Congress. Lawmakers were seated, their folders open, cameras pointed at the panel. Some were there to argue for tighter borders, others to speak for the undocumented. It was serious business, the kind of thing that usually makes headlines in policy circles, but doesn't go viral. But then it happened one moment, one comment, and everything changed. Instead of sticking to the topic, one congresswoman turned the spotlight on someone who wasn't even in the room. Jasmine Crockett, a Democrat from Texas known for speaking her mind, brought up a name that hasn't been in the political spotlight for a while, Melania Trump. And just like that, the hearing was no longer about visas or border rules. It became a personal attack. Crockett questioned how Melania got her visa to come to the US. She said that to qualify for the EB-1, known as the Einstein visa, a person should have rare world-level achievements, like winning a Nobel Prize or an Olympic medal. Then, looking directly at her fellow lawmakers, Crockett added something that hit hard. Last I checked, Melania didn't do any of that. People in the room froze. Some laughed under their breath. Others looked shocked. Phones lit up. Reporters began typing. Cameras caught every second. And before the hearing was even over, clips were already spreading online. But this wasn't just about one woman questioning another. This was bigger. Much bigger. Crockett's words cut into something deeper. A question millions have asked, silently but rarely here, out loud in Congress. Who really gets to be here? Who deserves the title American? Is it about paperwork, hard work, fame, marriage? Because Melania came to America legally, she became First Lady. But today, years later, she was being used as an example of what's wrong with the system, and the reaction split the country wide open. But Jasmine Crockett didn't stop. She didn't apologize. She stood by what she said. And then came the pushback. Republican Congressman Lance Gooden didn't wait long. He defended Melania on national TV, accused Democrats of crossing a line, and said the real problem isn't a former First Lady's past. It's how politicians are using her name to score points. That's where the story truly takes off. And if you think the opening was wild, you haven't seen anything yet. Let me know when you're ready for Outline 2, Conflict. And I'll write it in the same natural, gripping format. The moment Jasmine Crockett brought up Melania Trump's name, the hearing shifted. What was supposed to be a discussion about policy, immigration laws, legal pathways, government systems, instantly turned personal. And Congress knew it. You could see it in their eyes. The Republicans stiffened in their seats. Some Democrats looked away. The hearing room, which had been filled with routine voices and bureaucratic language, suddenly had tension in the air. Crockett didn't just mention Melania in passing. She took direct aim. She began listing the usual standards for the EB-1 visa, also called the Einstein visa. It's one of the toughest visas to get, meant for people who are at the top of their fields, Nobel winners, Olympic champions, world-class scientists. And then she compared that standard to Melania Trump. In her words, when I say model, I'm not talking about Tyra Banks or Naomi Campbell. I'm talking about someone who should have won a Nobel Prize or an Olympic medal. Last I checked, Melania had none of that. The delivery wasn't hesitant. It was sharp, deliberate, and calculated to make a point. Not just about Melania, but about how America handles immigration and who we reward with privilege. Phones buzzed. Staffers leaned in. A few smirks broke out, but most of the room just watched, stunned. Because this wasn't just an offhand joke. This was a sitting congresswoman using official time in a federal hearing to criticize the First Lady, not for what she believes or says, but for how she got into the country. And that's where the real conflict began. A deeper divide begins. Before the hearing was even over, clips were already making rounds online. Twitter caught fire. TikTok exploded. And within an hour, headlines started pouring in. Crockett questions Melania's legal status. Did Melania Trump deserve her visa? Einstein visa controversy rocks Congress. On social media, it quickly became partisan. Liberal voices called Crockett brave and unapologetically real. They said she was speaking truth, asking the questions that people have been afraid to ask for years. Some argued that the system is broken and built to favor people with connections over qualifications. If Melania wasn't married to Trump, one user wrote, would she have ever made it in? But on the other side, conservatives didn't hold back either. They accused Crockett of being petty, disrespectful, and even xenophobic toward an immigrant who followed the law. They said this wasn't about immigration anymore. It was about political revenge. Melania came legally, married the man she loved, and became First Lady, tweeted one Republican strategist. Now that's a crime. And the media? It turned into a battlefield. Enter Lance Gooden later that evening. Congressman Lance Gooden, a Republican from Texas who was sitting just a few seats away from Crockett during the hearing, appeared on national television. And he didn't mince words. First of all, I think the First Lady is magnificent, as do most Americans. He said, I'm proud of her and what she's done. I wouldn't dare question how she came here. What she did was legal. She followed the rules. Unlike what's happening at the border now, where people just walk in and vanish. He went further. Crockett's attack wasn't just political. It was personal. It was disrespectful. And worst of all, it was dishonest. Gooden turned the narrative around. Where Crockett framed Melania as someone who used privilege to skip the line, Gooden portrayed her as an example of how the system should work. Someone who followed the rules and built a life legally. But he didn't stop there. He accused Democrats of ignoring the real crisis, the broken border, rising crime, drugs pouring in, while using hearings like this to score points on cable news. They have no issue with chaos in LA, small businesses burning, or violent protests, he said. But they want to go back and attack someone who came here the right way. The right-wing media ran with it. Fox News did full segments. Clips of Gooden's response racked up millions of views. Melania's face was on screen again. So was Jasmine Crockett's. A country divided AGIN. By now, the internet was in full debate mode. Comment sections were turning into war zones. Some said Crockett was exposing a broken system. Others said she was tearing down a woman who stayed quiet, kept to herself, and never deserved to be targeted like that. And behind that fight, a bigger question began bubbling up. One that touched every viewer, no matter their side. Who gets questioned in America? And who gets the benefit of the doubt? Is the American dream only respected when it comes from a refugee camp? Or is it valid for someone who walked a different path? Does privilege automatically make someone unworthy? And if the system truly is unfair, should we fix it? Or just point fingers? No apologies. No regrets. Jasmine Crockett didn't back down. Even as backlash poured in, she posted on her account later that night. If asking why a First Lady got an Einstein visa off modeling hurts your feelings, maybe your feelings need to be hurt. She had no interest in softening her tone. She claimed her statement was less about Melania personally, and more about a system that rewards beauty and fame over genuine achievement. And to her supporters, that honesty made her real. To her critics, it made her reckless. But either way, she had everyone watching. This was no longer just a hearing. This was no longer just a visa debate. This had become something else, a symbol, a war of values, and a clear reminder that in today's America, even silence can be political. When Congressman Lance Gooden fired back on national television, it wasn't just a defense, it was a warning shot. He wasn't just standing up for Melania Trump, he was standing up for something bigger, the rules, the system, and the idea that some things, like legal immigration, should be respected no matter whose name is attached. And just like that, the moment Crockett lit the match, Gooden poured gasoline. The debate exploded. Within 24 hours, the Republican Party had launched a full counterattack. The GOP strikes back. Higher-ranking Republicans spoke out. Some called Crockett's remarks inappropriate. Others called them vile, un-American, even racist toward legal immigrants. A few even pushed for formal censure. A rare move in Congress that basically translates to, you crossed the line, and you'll pay for it. Talk shows picked it up. Commentators went in hard. So let me get this straight. One Fox host said, a woman comes here legally, becomes First Lady, stays out of politics, and still gets roasted by the people screaming about equality. The crowd clapped. The base was fired up. And the line had officially been drawn. Crockett refuses to back DOWN. But if anyone thought Jasmine Crockett would fold, they were wrong. She didn't walk it back. She didn't say, I misspoke. Instead, she got louder. In a follow-up post on Twitter, she wrote, I said what I said. That visa is for extraordinary ability. Being married to power is not extraordinary. Mic dropped. She leaned in, doubled down, and began making the argument bigger. There are immigrants who fled war, who survived poverty, who risked their lives and they still get denied. But if you marry a billionaire, you're in. That's the system we're protecting. To her supporters, this was bold. To her critics, it was disgraceful. Melania's side goes. Puby lights up. Until now, Melania Trump had stayed silent. As always, she remained outside of the mudslinging. No tweets, no statements, just silence. But her team couldn't ignore it anymore. A short message from her office was released. Mrs. Trump followed all legal procedures required by the United States government. Any suggestion otherwise is false, defamatory, and a political stunt. That was all they said. No emotion, no heat. But it was enough. Donald Trump, however, he doesn't do subtle. At his next rally, Trump took the stage in his usual firebrand style and unleashed Jasmine Crockett. She's a disgrace. She's jealous. My wife is everything. She will never be elegant, smart, and respected. Around the world, the crowd roared. Chants of Melania, Melania, echoed through the arena. And now it wasn't just political, it was personal. The culture war takes over online. The fight reached full-on chaos. Progressive voices argued. Crockett was exposing a real truth, that beauty, wealth, and fame are treated as achievements in a broken immigration system. Conservative influencers countered that Melania is being punished for being connected to Trump, that she's being attacked, not for what she did, but who she married. Even celebrities jumped in. Some supported Crockett, saying she said what needed to be said. Others defended Melania, calling the attacks low-class and grossly unfair. Political strategy, or public shaming. At the heart of all, this was one burning question. Was this personal attack part of a bigger political strategy, or just a moment of pure emotion? Some insiders claimed Crockett knew exactly what she was doing. They said she wanted to trigger the right, dominate headlines, and rally the Democratic base. And in a way, it worked. Progressives began fundraising, off-the-moment t-shirts, memes, video clips, it all went viral. But others saw it differently. This is exactly why people are sick of politics. One voter tweeted, "They're not fixing the border. They're arguing over who looked better in a magazine 20 years ago." The backlash had layers. Even some moderate Democrats were uncomfortable. "You can attack Trump's policies all day," said one Democratic strategist. "But going after Melania, that's not where the battle is." Tension at a breaking point inside Congress. The tension spilled into other hearings. Crockett clashed with other Republicans again. Microphones picked up quiet insults. There were whispers of ethics violations, even talk of removing her from future visa hearings. But that didn't stop her, and the fire she lit, it kept burning. Because now this wasn't about Melania. Not anymore. It had become a symbol of a larger war. Who gets to succeed in America? Whose journey gets celebrated, and whose gets torn apart? This was about what legal really means, and whether that definition changes based on your name, your fame, or your fortune. And just when it felt like it couldn't go further, a new hearing was scheduled. More witnesses, more testimony, and you could bet more drama. Because when politics turns personal, it never ends quietly. The hearing ended. The comments were made. The interviews aired. And yet, the noise hasn't stopped. This wasn't just a viral moment. It became something far deeper, something reflective of the division in this country. Because this story, Jasmine Crockett versus Melania Trump, wasn't really about two women. It was about what America values. The aftermath. Beyond. The HID lioness Melania Trump didn't ask to be part of the conversation. She didn't speak in that hearing. She didn't make any policy decisions. But she became a lightning rod anyway. Why? Because she represents a version of the American dream that is both admired and resented. An immigrant, a fashion model, a woman who married into power. To some, that's success. To others, it's privilege unearned and untouched by real struggle. Crockett's comments weren't just shade. They were a challenge to that narrative. And millions of Americans, especially those who have fought tooth and nail to gain citizenship or legal status, felt that deeply. Fair, that's still being debated, but it was felt. A nation watching ITSLF the real takeaway. This clash held up a mirror to the country. It forced people to ask uncomfortable questions. Is legal immigration enough? Or does someone's background and purpose still matter? Is it ever okay to question someone's past just because they're connected to power? Can we separate immigration policy from personal stories? It also raised another tough reality. Politics today thrives on conflict. Moments like this don't die. They spread. They fuel tribalism. And while the system stays broken, the arguments get louder. Both women stood there. Jasmine Crockett didn't backtrack. She said what she said, and she meant it. She forced the room to react. And in doing so, she made sure no one forgot the real topic. Who gets access and who gets questioned? Melania, on the other hand, stayed silent mostly. She let others defend her. She remained composed, quiet, and removed, just like she was during most of her time as First Lady. And yet, somehow her silence spoke volumes. It showed two completely different styles of power: loud confrontation, vs. quiet dignity, outspoken challenge, versus strategic silence. And America split almost perfectly between them. The real question still esteemed at the end of the day. This wasn't just about EB1 visas. It was about the credibility of the system. If one person, because of fame or beauty, can glide through paperwork while others wait for years, then what does that say about fairness? But at the same time, if every immigrant who marries someone powerful is automatically suspect, what does that say about us? That's the balance America hasn't figured out yet. And maybe won't for a long time. Final thoughts, emotionally close. The truth is, every immigrant has a story. Some come here with genius. Some come with grit. Some come with love. And, yes, some come with privilege. But none of them deserve to be reduced to a punchline. Jasmine Crockett lit a fire that exposed how unequal the system can feel. Gooden pushed back, defending what many see as the right path. And Melania Trump. She stood in the middle, silent, symbolic, and suddenly political again. Whether you agree with Crockett or not, whether you admire Melania or not, this moment reminded the country of one truth. Immigration isn't just policy, it's personal. And the way we talk about it tells the world who we really are. Ending lines for videos. So, what do you think? Was Crockett out of line, or just brutally honest? Should Melania's past be off limits, or fair game in a broken system? Let us know in the comments. Because this wasn't just a clash in Congress. It was a conversation we all need to have.